time, and definitely we have to utilize. Yeah, we have to utilize this time to know more about COVID, and especially experts like Dr. Ravi sir is going to guide us through what is the future of this COVID variants and all that stuff. So I really welcome all of you for this second BCG meeting. I would like to request our President K. Satish sir to please introduce our guest speaker Ravi sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shivling Swami. I welcome everyone. Nice to see everyone without the mask. That's the beauty of the virtual meetings here. I can clearly see everybody's face instead of seeing masked faces. And as you said, this is an unusual time for all of us. And naturally, we don't want to lag behind, at least meeting uh, everyone virtually or otherwise. Maybe it'll take some more time before everyone gets vaccinated to have a physical meeting, which you used to have. Dr. Ravi, we used to have every month meeting where we discuss the cases, interesting cases, procedures, or we would have a lecture on a particular topic. So that is what we did. Every month we used to meet and of course have a dinner and fellowship and disperse, exchange a lot of ideas, what everyone is doing, junior, senior, everyone. So we have a good, very nice group, and we were always looking forward to it. Now, of course, virtually we sometimes meet in the webinars, and of course, officially this is the thing Dr. Shivling Swami was mentioned. So it's a pleasure, Ravi, to have you amongst us. And once Dr. Huliraj, our secretary, decided that we will have a meeting, Dr. Satish, I said, yeah, and then he said, can you invite Ravi? Yes, I hope he's free that day. And fortunately, he was free, and we booked his slot. He's a very busy man. I know him for last maybe 30 years now, close to 30 years at least, and I have interacted with him very closely. He used to be the head of the department of neurovirology at prestigious NIMANS, and now he's the nodal officer for genomic sequencing of SARS-CoV-2, government of Karnataka. Wherever there is a new virus or a new disease, and Ravi has to be there. And that is because of his background in research, background in clinical medicine with applied neurovirology. And as our senior Dr. Revdi was saying, that he is always helpful. And whenever I remember, whenever I used to call him for a CD4 count or a testing on a difficult patient, he would always say, send them to NIMHANS, I will take care of it. And he did diligently every time. And many patients suffer during 90s were going to CMC Vellore for doing a CD4 count. Ravi, you remember. And then you brought in the CD4 machine, and then we started doing CD4, CD8. And Ravi has helped a lot of us clinicians indirectly, of course, the patients, whether it is parasitology and neurovirology, he would come in and help us. Ravi and me have been part of a very well-known NGO in HIV, Samraksha, and he is now the president, and I'm one of the member. We keep swapping places, and we have done a lot of work. He has helped us to have some guidelines in remote places like Kustagi, Koppal, and those kind of places. And his work, all of us know, just for youngsters to know. I hope people will recollect and remember KFT disease, Castor forest disease. Ravi, am I right? You were involved in research and finding out the reason for why this happened. And then all of us know about his pioneering work in in encephalitis and meningitis and many places, not only here, but other places. And he's also in various committees headed, very prestigious, like ICMR and other places. And that has helped all of us in knowing about the viruses which come up. And naturally, when the COVID broke and when the COVID came, and he was naturally a person to look up and to get him involved in the work of COVID science and testing or measuring the virus, or now a genome, and then of course the vaccine. He's been giving regularly lectures all over, addressing scientific community, all kinds of people. He's also on the expert committee and in the BBMP group committee, and addressing media and so on and so forth. And Ravi, very nice to have you. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time to share us your view on COVID variants and vaccine, which is of interest to us. And all over to you, Ravi. Thank you so much for accepting. Thank you. I request everyone to mute so that there won't be any disturbance about his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have question and answer.
Thank you, Satish. And so nice to be back among friends of very long duration. I must thank Dr. Satish, Dr. Shivlinga Swami, Dr. Huliraj, Dr. Murli Mohan, and many others, Dr. Revdi, and so many friends. I am an honorary member of the Bangalore Lung Club, if I can use that terminology. In future, I look forward to attend your meetings because now I'm retired. I have nothing else to do. So I hope you're able to see my screen, Satish.
Okay. Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've been asked to talk on the COVID variants and vaccination. As usual, I start with a disclaimer. All information is from credible literature and information, not from WhatsApp University. I don't have a doctorate. I know many people have doctorates in WhatsApp University. I don't have any conflict of interest, no shares in any vaccine companies. I am on the advisory panel of Sputnik, International Advisory Panel, but I can assure you I don't have shares. I don't have shares in any companies because I never understood mathematics because I'm a biologist. I'll be factual and not prescriptive. What I'll do in the next 35 minutes or 40 minutes is to talk to you on what are COVID variants, how do we detect them, what are the implications for COVID-19, what are the vaccines available currently, how do they fare against variants, and then end with a summary. I think we all know this coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, was a new virus to humanity, first identified on January 5th by complete genome sequencing in patients who reported to southern part of China in Wuhan province in the month of December. Their samples were sequenced directly. Very interestingly, that was the mode of identification. And they identified it as a novel coronavirus. It's called corona because on electron microscopy, it's a beautiful image. It's spherical, uniformly studded with spike proteins that gives the appearance of a crown. Most importantly, it's widely distributed in animals, birds, mammals, and humans, and it spills over from one species to another. This is a property of coronavirus, just like the influenza virus. Why do variants of coronavirus emerge? I think I'll start here. As you know, coronavirus is an RNA virus. All RNA viruses are endowed by God with an excellent property known as mutation. You all know that DNA viruses have another property known as latency. They get integrated into human genome and they can get reactivated. Herpes and VZV are classical examples. With respect to RNA viruses, they are endowed with the property of mutation. Why this happens is the enzyme that replicates RNA, which is called RNA dependent RNA polymerase, has very poor proofreading ability. Let me put it in simple terms. When one molecule of RNA is multiplied into two by the RNA polymerase, one or two nucleotides or more nucleotides will be different from the parent strand. In the case of influenza, which has the highest mutation rate, it can be 10 to the power 4. That means every time it replicates, many nucleotides will be different. In case of HIV, which Satish was talking about, the mutation rate is almost equivalent to that of. In coronavirus, there are 30,000 nucleotides. And what surprised us, we thought coronaviruses are innocuous, that every time it copies itself, we now know that one nucleotide is different. That means 29,999 will be identical to the parent strain. And in an individual who's infected, millions of particles are produced every day. And these mutations will start accumulating. Fortunately for us, if these mutations are in areas where it does not matter, they will not make any difference to the behavior of the virus. But if they are on the surface proteins and they are significant, which means they result in the change in amino acid, then the virus can alter its behavior. So this is one of the main reasons why coronavirus mutants will continue to emerge continuously in the next several years. So we have to live with it. We cannot change it. We cannot prevent it. The second important cause of viruses mutating is immunological pressure. And immunological pressure is being mounted more now with vaccination. As a result, in people who are vaccinated or in immunocompromised people who have a chronic infection, like maybe HIV, transplant individuals, the immunological pressure on the virus will make it change its surface proteins. In fact, there is some evidence to say that one of the first variants that emerged in UK happened to be an immunocompromised individual who on top of that received plasma therapy. So double pressure on the virus to mutate. And that's how the UK variant first emerged. So fortunately for us, among the thousands of mutations that occur, only those that give advantage the virus to transmit better, they will survive. This is Darwinian principle of survival, evolution. The fittest will survive, the others will fall by the wayside and they will not survive. So we understand now why variants emerge. There's a lot of confusion. All of you have been confused by the nomenclature that has been used for variants. So sometime late last year, there was a publication in Nature Medicine, a consensus publication that said, okay, we will all use one particular terminology, and that was derived from the pangolin lineage. And they said, okay, we will globally stick to one particular terminology. And they use the pangolin lineage. And the pangolin lineage, what it does is it has classified virus variants as A, B, and C, D, and so on. A is the parent Wuhan virus. Within a couple of months, it started mutating. And when it significantly changed, especially one of the surface proteins, it was called B. And when B lineage emerged, there were a lot of mutations continuously occurring. They were subclassified as B.1, B.1.1, B.1.1.1, and so on. When there was a divergence in the phylogenetic tree and it was significantly different, it is called C. So this is how the pangolin lineage went on. Now this was getting too complex. It was even complex for people like me. And I used to pull a lot of my leftover hair. So I can imagine how complex